I'm Gabriel Knight, a bookshop owner and aspiring writer. New Orleans is plagued by a series of ritualistic murders known as the Voodoo Murders. I started investigating them to gather inspiration for my new book. I enlisted the help of Grace, my one and only employee, and Detective Mosley, my old friend. So far, I've only got nightmares and gathered general information about the widespread voodoo practices in the city. The only silver lining is that I'm about to meet a beautiful woman who will make this investigation more interesting, I'm sure. Miss Malia Getty. Before we continue the story, remember to like and subscribe for more ASMR gaming content. I still have quite a few things to do today. It's now time to visit my old friend Detective Mosley. On my way to the police station, I think about Malia and savor the moment we'll finally meet face to face, alone. Then it hits me. I have no business meeting her. People like her usually have scheduled appointments and don't meet random strangers. Telling her I'm researching material for a book won't be enough. If only I had some official business. Well, she saw me at the crime scene yesterday, so she might think I'm with the police. I just need a badge. Dear Mosley, your badge will be instrumental in the start of the best love story ever. How can I get hold of it, though? Asking him is out of the question. I know he keeps it in his jacket. Oh well, I'll figure something out when I meet him. I join Mosley in his office and start asking about the murders to get a better picture of the situation. So far, there have been 7 murders, the first happening 8 weeks ago. They all have the same MO. The victim's heart was ripped from the chest using a ritualistic knife, given the wavy pattern left on the flesh around the wound. No hearts have been found. God knows what they do with them. Around the victim, there's a smudged pattern drawn with flour. Besides the victim's blood, there's plenty of chicken blood, feathers, and sometimes goat blood too. Also, there are plenty of small fibers, the weirdest one being leopard fur. Leopard? Interesting. The police believes at least 20 people participate in the rituals, but no one ever sees or hears anything. Scary stuff. Mosley allows me to look at the photos of the partial patterns from the other crime scenes, but I can't make a copy. Or can I? With the excuse of taking pictures with Mosley for the book, I distract both him and the police photographer. I sneak out of his office and quickly make a copy of the police file using the photocopier. Now I just need to find someone who can reconstruct the whole pattern from the partials. There's one more thing left to do. Borrow Mosley badge. The chance easily materializes. It's hot in the office, so my friend has removed his jacket, and I see the badge sticking out of a pocket. I ask him if he can bring me a cup of coffee, and while he's gone, I'll take the badge. I feel a bit guilty, but just a little bit. We chat a few more minutes, but then it's time to hit the road and meet my fancy mansion in the Garden District 20 minutes later. It is indeed a beautiful place that oozes, "We got a lot of money," from every evenly trimmed blade of grass. But whatever, no one can resist Gabriel Knight's charm. I introduce myself as Detective Mosley to the butler, letting him know I'm on official police business. And voila, I'm granted an audience with Miss Getty. We start a conversation casually. I learn she's a very busy woman, managing the family's financial obligations all on her own. She's an only child. Her mother recently passed away, and she never knew her father. Luckily for me, I also learn she's single. It seems managing the family wealth leaves her little time for anything else. Oh, poor Malia, let me help you with that. I ask her about what happened on the shores of Lake Pontchartrain, but she doesn't know anything. As the conversation flows, I decide to make my move. I compliment her looks, her deep, goldish brown eyes, her fantastic physical appearance, and, oh boy, it doesn't work. My behavior confirms her suspicion. It's unlikely I'm with the police. Besides, she remembers Mosley as the other guy from yesterday, so I have no business being here. Okay, time to come clean. I tell her my real name and that I'm working with Detective Mosley for a book I'm writing. That's not working either. As a last-ditch effort, I confess that I went this far just to meet her again because she's so beautiful. Unsurprisingly, none of this works. I'm just lucky she lets the butler escort me out without calling the real police. Oh well, it was worth a shot, I suppose. I slowly drive back to the French Quarter and stop in Jackson Square. I'm disappointed my clever plan didn't work. Yet, for a brief moment, Malia seemed not indifferent to me. She seems to spend a lot of time alone. Maybe me making a fool of myself might have moved something. While I'm pondering this, I notice an artist drawing St. Louis Cathedral. His sketch is really well done, a very precise depiction of the building. I wonder if he could reconstruct the pattern from the murder scenes if I give him the partials. Convincing the guy involves a convoluted series of actions, requiring me to seek the help of a street tap dancer, use an old $20 gift certificate for my bookshop, and buy a hot dog. Anyway, in the end, the artist is more than willing to reconstruct the pattern and assures me it will be ready for tomorrow. That's just great. It's getting late, so I decide to go back to the shop. As I arrive, Grace is leaving for the day. I just have time to ask her if she can find the address of a certain Madame Casano. She reluctantly agrees, thinking I'm pursuing another hot catch, but I assure her she's just a lovely old lady in her 70s, and it's for professional purposes. Grace doesn't look too convinced though. Maybe she knows me better than I do. Anyway, it's time to go to bed. For another restless night. Same nightmare, same feeling of dread. It's starting to become boring, to be honest. It's a new day, and I join Grace in the main shop. She's curious to know how it went with Malia, or rather, how big of a failure it was. But I won't give her the satisfaction of gloating over my missteps. So I reply vaguely, giving the impression it went well. A bit disappointed, she hands me a page of the white pages, listing 4 Casanova names. I'll have to call each one to figure out which one is correct. I quickly browse the newspaper, but there's nothing interesting, aside from a small article about a certain Professor Hartridge giving a lecture on African religions today at Tulane University. Isn't voodoo a derivation of African religions? I should attend that lecture. Luckily, it's late in the day, so I have time to run other errands first. While I'm reading, Grace informs me that Mosley called. They caught a suspect who might know something about the murders and are about to interrogate him. I should drop by. It might be good stuff for the book. A couple of minutes later, I leave the shop and head towards the police station. As I arrive, I notice a drummer outside the building. This is rather unusual. This is definitely not a tourist spot. Anyway, I join Mosley in his office right on time to be scolded for borrowing his badge. But he's a good guy and doesn't dwell much on it. Besides, there's a suspect to interrogate. His name is Crash, a low-level pusher and police informant. Mosley is convinced he knows something about the murders. Unfortunately, either Mosley isn't good at interrogating people, or Crash is too scared to say anything. Probably the latter. He keeps referring to they. They know everything. They have ears everywhere. He's really worried they saw him when the police picked him up. He's also mumbling about sending a message to them to let them know he didn't say anything. The interrogation is useless. The police can only keep Crash in custody for 24 hours. So tomorrow he'll be around the French Quarter again, I'm sure. Maybe I'll have a better luck with him. There's still time before the lecture, so I go back to Jackson Square to check if the artist has my reconstructed pattern. And indeed he does. He gladly gives it back, as he gets creeped out just looking at it. Oh well, whatever. Now I need someone to interpret it. Maybe the university professor giving the lecture. On my way to the university, I stop at St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 to look at Marie Laveau's tomb. I ask the groundskeeper for information, and it seems Laveau's tomb is frequently visited by devotees who leave various offerings. Animal parts, even human parts. Oh dear. They also write on her tomb. I notice what looks like a message on the side wall. It's written in a strange coded alphabet. I decide to copy it down, hoping to find someone who can translate it. Maybe Dr. John from the museum could help. The groundskeeper says he visits the tomb often. I decide to walk around the cemetery since my family tomb is here too. Unfortunately, both my parents died in a car accident when I was a kid. it was a tragic event. As I approached the tomb, I noticed Malia. What a coincidence! Her family tomb is here as well. Without hesitation, I gave it another shot. I approach her and tell her I can't stop thinking about her. Unexpectedly, that seems to work. She looks far less secure and stone-cold than yesterday. She starts mumbling feeble excuses about her family being very traditional, that she's not in a position to get involved, and that we live in two different worlds. But she doesn't outright reject me. I tell her she could come and see my world. I give her the address of my shop and say I'll be waiting for her tonight. She looks frightened and upset, then runs away. I might have blown it again. Oh well. Time for the lecture at the university, I guess. I arrive just on time, and it turns out to be quite a deep dive into voodoo and its origins. Professor Hartridge has a monotonic voice, and given my restless nights, I unfortunately fall asleep after a few minutes. Nonetheless, I grasp some basic concepts. Voodoo priestesses, called Mamaloa, are quite powerful, far more than male priests. During a ceremony, the spirit they summon, called Loa, possesses the priestess, or more precisely, she is ridden by the Loa. When these spirits are invoked, they grant tremendous powers to the Mamaloa. Among the other information I catch before falling asleep is that each tribe has a voodoo temple where they gather regularly, and also each ceremony involves various objects depending on the ritual's purpose. One of these is a knife with a wavy blade. Interestingly, all the victims presented wounds with a wavy pattern. Another object is a small coffin called Seki Madole, which looks exactly like the small coffin I saw at the Voodoo Museum. I'm wondering if that has been used recently. Are you hiding something, Dr. John? The lecture goes on for 30 more minutes, but by then I'm fully asleep. As the lecture ends, Professor Hartridge is still hanging around for questions, so I decide to approach him. First, I ask if he knows what Caprice encore means. It turns out it's French for goat without horns, which in voodoo means a human sacrifice. Oh God. Usually animals are sacrificed in voodoo rituals, but the Loa can ask for a human sacrifice. I'm starting to think the voodoo used in the murders is very real. The confirmation comes seconds later when I show the professor the reconstructed pattern called Veve. Seeing it, his excitement goes through the roof. He confirms the pattern is authentic and not just a random drawing. He quickly makes a copy of it because he wants to study its origins, as different tribes have their own distinctive veves. He then rushes to his office and lets me know he will call when he has more information. I go back to the shop. Time to call some random strangers and find the real Madame Casino. After a couple of failed attempts, I finally recognize the old lady's voice on the other end of the phone. Unfortunately, she's not keen to talk to strangers, and her dog's continuous yapping makes the conversation difficult. But at least I learned that her dog's name is Castro. That gives me an idea. I called the local veterinary clinic to check if Madame Casano is their client. Indeed she is, and mentioning that I'm worried about Castro missing this week's dancing lesson, the vet is more than willing to share her address. Time to visit Madame Casano. Unfortunately, the visit is short. She's so suspicious of strangers that she doesn't let me inside and quickly sends me away. I don't blame her. I wouldn't invite myself in looking the way I do now. Maybe with a little touch-up, I could have better luck. I remember Madame Casano being rather religious, so maybe if I dress up as a priest. I have all the materials in my room, so a few minutes later I'm back as Father McLaughlin. It works like a charm. She's more than willing to let in the new priest in the parish for a chat and maybe a blessing. The conversation turns out to be rather interesting. Her family has been in New Orleans since 1750, and she knows quite a bit about voodoo. Her great-grandmother, in fact, was an acolyte of Marie Laveau herself. Fascinating. According to Madame Casano, there's voodoo everywhere in the city. Everyone is involved, and people can curse you on the street or in the stores just like that. But she knows the magic to counter all those evil spells. That sounds pretty paranoid if you ask me. Things get really interesting when I casually ask about Capri Sancour. She knows it means a human sacrifice. Not only that, her great-grandmother saw the ritual carried out. It was demanded by the real voodoo queen. According to Madame Casano, Marie Laveau was just a front. Behind her, the real voodoo queen has been running the voodoo for the last 200 years. She knows there's a secret temple somewhere in the city, but she's not sure where. All she can hear are the drums resounding at night that keep her from sleeping. At that point, she wants to show me something secret and powerful, a silver bracelet shaped like a snake that belonged to her great-grandmother. Apparently, it was used to gain access to the real voodoo ceremonies. Interesting. That might come in handy. With a quick thinking, I ask if I can hold it to bless it. While doing that, I take out the clay I picked up from the lake shore and make a mold. Now I just have to find someone able to make a bracelet for me. I'd say this conversation with Madame Casano was quite a success. Given it's already the end of the day, I head back to the shop. Grace is about to leave, so I quickly ask her if she could research the reconstructed Vevey, specifically if it comes up in any old local newspaper. As I'm about to go to sleep, I hear Grace discussing with someone just outside the shop. She's trying vehemently to send this person away, since the shop is closed. But then I recognize Malia's voice. Yes, my clever plan worked. She's here to see me. I quickly get outside and let Malia in. Oh boy, what a night. Let's just say I did not have any nightmares this time. Au contraire. In the next episode. What? They've closed the voodoo murders case? I must speak with Mosley and convince him to reopen it. is real, no doubts about it. Interesting. The guy calling me from Germany is my long-lost great-uncle. He claims our family has been fighting evil since the dawn of time. What? Of course, my long-lost uncle is a weirdo